You know the exact moment. Someone asks you for something, a favour, your weekend, your energy, and before you've even properly registered the question, something tightens, lower than your chest, in your stomach, and the word no is sitting right there, 2 letters, perfectly reasonable. And quietly, before you've decided anything, you've already said yes. If that's seen as a little too familiar, if saying no feels less like a decision and more like a small transgression, this isn't a video that's going to ask you to fix yourself. It's a video about why your nervous system treats that 2-letter word as something genuinely dangerous, and why the guilt that arrives before you've even done anything wrong isn't a moral signal at all. Psychologists have a name for what's happening here. The technical term is the Fawn response, a 4th threat response, sitting quietly alongside fight, flight, and freeze. And the research on it has become quite specific in recent years. Honestly, once you see the mechanism properly, a lot of small moments start to make sense. The yes that comes out before the question finishes, the over-explaining, the apology tacked onto a perfectly reasonable refusal. None of it is a character flaw. It's a learned safety strategy doing exactly what it was trained to do. Here's what's interesting. Your brain does not experience social rejection as merely awkward. It experiences it as physically dangerous. A 2003 study published in Science, led by Dr. Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA with Dr. Kipling Williams, scanned people's brains while they were quietly excluded from a simple online ball-tossing game. The regions that lit up, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, the anterior insula, were regions associated with the experience of physical pain. The same architecture that activates when you stub your toe on the corner of a bed frame in the dark. Now, to be precise, later research has shown the neural overlap isn't total. The brain doesn't borrow pain circuitry wholesale. But the overlap is real, and the implication is quite specific. Your nervous system treats social disapproval as a threat to be managed, not a preference to be noted. Dr. Mark Leary at Duke University has a name for the system that does this monitoring. He calls it the Sociometer. The idea is that self-esteem isn't really about feeling good about yourself. It's a quiet alarm system, constantly scanning for signs that you might be getting excluded from a group. So the guilt that arrives when you think about saying no, that's your sociometer firing. It isn't telling you that you've done something wrong. It's telling you that you might, possibly, get left out. And for a brain shaped by hundreds of thousands of years of group survival, being left out was, properly, life-threatening. But the evolutionary story is only half of it. Because every human has this wiring. Not every human feels this level of guilt declining a simple request. That part, the intensity, was written into you specifically. Psychotherapist Pete Walker coined the term for what tends to be underneath it. The Fawn response, he describes, is a way of responding to threat by becoming more appealing to the threat itself. It tends to emerge in environments where love or safety was conditional. Not always dramatic environments. Sometimes it's something much quieter. A parent whose mood governed the atmosphere of the whole house. A childhood in which the path of least resistance was also the path to feeling loved. The child learns very early which behaviors produce warmth and which produce withdrawal. Accommodating gets rewarded. Asking gets complicated. And after enough repetitions, accommodating doesn't just become a habit, it becomes identity. Then you grow up. The caregivers change, colleagues, partners, friends. But the wiring stays. Saying yes means I'm safe. Saying no means I'm in trouble. If this is starting to sound a little familiar and you'd like more like this, there's a subscribe button somewhere just below. No pressure. We'll carry on. Honestly, the cost of running that wiring into adulthood is quietly significant. A 2025 paper in Psych Journal, working with a sample of over 2,200 adults, found that higher levels of people-pleasing thought patterns were associated with meaningfully lower mental well-being. Not slightly lower, meaningfully. Dr. Debbie Sorensen, a clinical psychologist trained at Harvard, has been particularly clear about where this shows up. If you frequently take on more than you can comfortably manage because you're afraid of disappointing someone, she points out, those tendencies can push you towards burnout. Not metaphorical burnout, the clinical kind. And Adam Grant, organizational psychologist at Wharton, made a point in 2024 that quite cleanly cuts to the center of it. The root of chronic people-pleasing, he said, is not concern for others. It's concern for their approval, which is a different thing entirely. Concern for others is generous. Concern for their approval is anxious. Bear with me for a second, because this is the part that surprises people. Most of the time, the rejection you're dreading doesn't actually happen. A 2019 study by Kuchaki and Smith, published in the Journal of Experimental Psychology, found that people consistently underestimate how likely their requests are to be accepted. We predict refusal far more often than refusal actually occurs. The same pattern likely runs in reverse. When you imagine saying no, you probably imagine a worse reaction than you genuinely receive. A colder withdrawal, a more wounded silence, a relationship more damaged than it would actually be. Your brain is doing a risk calculation, and quietly, it's a slightly terrible mathematician. There's a reframe from Dr. Jeffrey Bernstein, writing in Psychology Today, that's worth sitting with. The guilt you feel when you say no, he suggests, isn't evidence that you did something wrong. It's evidence that you did something different. Different from the pattern. Different from the script. The funny thing is, people who get a little better at saying no don't actually become less caring. They tend to become more present in the yeses they do give. Because every yes coming from genuine willingness rather than managed anxiety simply means something different. The people around you feel that, even if they couldn't name it. The Fawn response that was written into you was a solution, not a flaw. It worked properly for the environment it was first written in. You just, at some point, moved environments. And the solution is, quietly, still running. Your nervous system is a learning organ. It updates. Each time you say no, and the world does not end, and the relationship does not shatter, and the person across from you adjusts without catastrophe, your sociometer gets slightly better data to work with. So if the guilt arrives the next time you decline something, and it will, honestly, that's the whole point, it might be worth recognizing what it actually is. Not a verdict, not evidence, just an old alarm, doing the job it was trained for in an environment it no longer recognizes. You don't owe anyone your depletion as proof of your worth. The people who genuinely care about you were never asking for that. And quietly, the ability to say no, gently, without apology, without explanation, matters more than people give it credit for. If this one landed, the like button does help a fair bit. It's how the channel finds the people who might need it. There's a membership option in the Join button if you'd like to support what we're doing here properly, with early access and behind-the-scenes scripts. I've left another video linked just here, about the people who are most likely to burn out quietly, and why the most capable person in the room is often the most tired. You might recognize yourself in it.